YouTube. Let me see who we have. I see on Facebook, Jenna is watching. On YouTube, I see Mars, Chris. Let us know if you could hear us. Vanilla, Robert, Angel. Angel, thank you so much for the super chat. On Facebook, I see Scott is saying hello, friends. Hi Scott. Thank you. Okay, great. So by the way, I don't know if you got Rivka. Do you want to introduce yourself? Like we have Ali is not here today. Shopam is not here today. So Ali and I and Shopam usually do the show, which is I'm the ex-Muslim on the show. Ali is the ex-Christian on the show. Shobham is the ex-Hindu on the show. And Rivka, am I pronouncing your name right? Right, yeah?
Yes, Rivka.
Rivka is our ex-Jewish on the show. So we have usually the full set, but today it's just me and Rivka. And we're going to be covering the news. By the way, people, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And also, link in the description, subscribe to our newsletter. That's the only way for us to reach you all the time. Because Facebook and YouTube, they really don't like the topics that we cover. Like, just look on the screen. Look at the next first topic that we're covering. These are not social media friendly news items, okay? And that's why on YouTube, we can't grow. We can't grow because YouTube hates the content that we produce, and the algorithm is now working against us. Like all the other channels grew when this algorithm wasn't, so just share our videos and subscribe to our newsletter so we could actually reach you, because YouTube doesn't want us to reach you. Anyway, so Rivka, should we just get started with the first news item?
Sure, I know, but you had mentioned that this was our 100th news.
Oh yeah, we're episode 100! Yay! That's good. I don't know if people know what that is, but that's an Arabic thing. Do Jews have that as well?
The Moroccan Jews do it, and the Iranian Arabic Jews do it, and the Yemeni Jews do it, and the Iraqi Jews do it.
So the Jews that are close to Arabs, they do it.
Yeah. The Ashkenaz don't so much. But
not so much. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. All right. I don't even know how to do that, but that's good. All right. Let's get started.
Okay. So our first news item is a Marry Your Rapist bill to be introduced by lawmakers in Turkey. So a law which would allow men accused of having sex with girls who are under 18 to avoid punishment. To avoid punishment if they marry their victims is set to be introduced in the parliament in Turkey. This controversial so-called Marry Your Rapist bill, which lawmakers are planning to introduce at the end of January, has sparked fury amongst women's rights campaigners throughout the country. A similar bill, which was defeated in 2016 after national and global outrage. This legislation from 2016 would have only pardoned men if they had had sex with women without force or threat. And also, with regard to this new bill, not only is it girls who are under 18, but the age difference is less than 10 years. That's also part of the bill.
So this is in Turkey. This sounds like more of a Christian thing to me than Islamic thing, because in the Bible we have this, right? If you have sex with a man's daughter without being married, you could what happens? You pay some silver. Oh, by the way, your microphone is being okay. You pay some silver to somebody, and what happens? I forgot. Yeah, go on.
You can pay for your daughter, or you can marry. They would marry her, but there's a payment.
Right.
You can sell your daughter, money, goats.
Right.
Things like that.
But you marry. So if you rape a man's daughter or something in Christianity, you could marry her and pay some silver, and then all is good. Hey, stop touching the mic.
I'm moving it so it stays better.
That's okay. So
it's not just Christianity. I think it's in the Old Testament as well.
Yeah, that's what I meant. The Bible, the Old Testament, so Jews and Christian. But we don't have. This is Turkey. This is an Islamic country, so we don't have this in Islam. That you can't do that in Islam. So it's weird that something that I know you can do in Christianity and Judaism, mostly Judaism. Rivka, you're the paper moving. Really, I can hear it on the thing. Yeah.
Okay, well, I was going to read something about it in here.
Go on.
They were saying that a lot of this does happen in Islamic countries, and they've been able to get rid of these laws in countries like Jordan, Morocco, Lebanon. But a lot of it was maybe not so much religion-based, but more culturally based for honor culture, so to speak.
Right. So even though it happens mostly in Islamic countries, it's technically not Islamic because there is no Islamic scripture. There's nothing in the Quran that you could do this. As much you know, the hadith is so big, but I haven't even seen anything in the hadith that would support this. If I'm wrong, if somebody knows a hadith that supports this, please let us know in the comment section. But I don't think this is Islamic. You can't, if you rape somebody before, you know, if you have sex with somebody that is not your wife or your slave, okay, so you can't just Islam has slavery and has sex slavery, but you can't just willy-nilly go have sex with somebody and just be like, well, they're my slave. No, like you have to like buy it, the sex slave, or you have to capture it in war for that to become officially your sex slave, right? You can't just be like, just go have sex with. And again, like you have to understand, like based on Islamic, if you read Islamic scripture, you come out with this understanding that an unmarried woman is the property of her father, right? So it's when you rape a woman in Islam, the crime is not necessarily against the woman. The crime is against the owner of the woman, which is the father, right? Even in Judaism is like that, because who you pay damages to is not the girl. You pay damages to the father because you broke the property, right?
Well, I think that the bill, even though they're calling it "Marry Your Rapist," I think it's really intended for underage marriage.
Oh, okay.
Because that is sort of, they're calling it that because people are saying, you know, a girl, or mostly it's girls, but it could be even a young boy.
I see.
They can't really consent.
Okay, so this is not about. Okay. So this is more about. Well, so they're allowing. The bill is technically trying to allow underage marriage if you marry the girl. Okay. So now I get it.
Right. So even though it would have been a statutory rape violation, and the age for marriage in Turkey is supposed to be 18, they're saying
trying to find a loophole.
Not, provided there's only a 10-year difference and you want to get married.
Okay, this is Islamic then.
Well, apparently that's what Ankara is claiming. Like the government is claiming that this bill will rectify the injustice that happens to couples that marry young and don't know that they're in violation of the law.
Okay, so the name of this bill by the protesters just confusing me what this is about. Okay, so this bill is about allowing people to marry underage girls. Okay, so definitely Islamic then. So this is an Islamic problem. Okay.
Right.
So there, I see why they call it "Marry a Rapist" because children can't consent. So that makes sense. But it would have been more clear if they say "Marry a Child" bill, because I think people would be more outraged for some reason if that was the name of the bill, "Marry a Child" bill.
Well, I think that the name of it is inflammatory,
right, on purpose,
because that's how a lot of the women in the country feel about it,
right?
Particularly, as you said, that women are often seen as property. And actually, a professor from the Istanbul University Department of Criminal Law said exactly the same thing. He said, not only will the bill increase the likelihood of the rates of violence against women and child marriage, but it will, and I quote, legitimize the mentality that women are objects to possess and exist only for the sexual satisfaction of men.
Right. So why is Turkey pushing for this? Turkey is going more and more Islamic, right? So this is
well, they're going backwards because they actually abolished a law like this in 2005.
Right. Yeah, Turkey is going. A lot of Islamic countries are going backwards when it comes. They're getting more Islamic. But like, if you were like, who introduced this bill? Like, what's the political motivation behind it? Are you trying to appeal to, like, are you like, what's the, because these people are strategic. Like, they wouldn't do something unless it benefits them in a way. Like, do you think like, oh, there's a whole bunch of men, the Muslim men, that this appeals to, and this is how we could get more support? Like, is that what the calculation is? Because I mean,
I think it's Erdogan and his party,
right?
Because in 2017 they also passed a law allowing Islamic muftis and Islamic scholars to perform civil marriage ceremonies, which a lot of people said undermined Turkey's secular constitution.
Right.
And so I think it's the whole sort of re-Islamatization that's happening under Erdogan. I mean, that's how I would look at it. I mean, especially because
it's so it's so telling about what Islam is when the process of Islamization of the country involves, oh yeah, you get to have sex with children. This is our step on making the country more Islamic. Like, okay, well, it's very interesting because, you know, Erdogan and like that, I don't know who's that guy from Malaysia and some other countries. They're like trying to build a coalition of 3 countries that fights Islamophobia in the world, right? Trying to give Islam the better image. These fight against Islamophobes. They're like, well, you yourself are doing a much better job showing us what Islam stands for than any so-called Islamophobe can do by allowing sex with children. Like, we don't even have to do anything. We're just doing our job for us. Thank you very much. Like, yeah. But so you were gonna say something?
Well, I was going to say that it definitely Erdogan, because I think it was 2014. He was at some kind of conference. And he himself said that women and men can't be on equal footing because it's unnatural.
Right.
It goes against nature.
Right.
So,
well, I mean,
you know,
okay, so we have to be careful what we mean by that, because men and women are not equal by nature, right? But they should have equal rights. That's 2 different things.
Yeah, I think his words were equal footing, which I would imagine would mean equal rights. And then he goes on to say that women who don't have children are incomplete and they're against their, you know, denying their femininity and things like that.
Right. Yeah. Well, so keep talking, Erdogan. We don't need to. I mean, this is sad though. It says the bill has been introduced. Does that mean it hasn't been passed yet? So it's just
no, it hasn't been passed. They tried to do it in 2016, I believe, but it was shot down.
Yeah, this actually
because of protests and public outrage.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Iran and Turkey resist. There's a whole bunch of people, like not all of the country, not even the majority of the country, but Iran and Turkey resist Islamization more than other countries in the region, right? So if you because this is exactly what happened in Iran. Like, Iranian women are very, very against men marrying multiple, you know, having multiple wives, very much against child marriage, and the governments keep trying to push for that, and there's always a huge backlash. But like, it goes against, even though the country is Islamic, it goes against the country's culture to do these things, right? It's very interesting because both Iran and Turkey are the 2 Islamic countries that didn't let their language become Arabized. Like, they kept their, because when Islam spread, all these other non-Arabic countries quickly become Arabic, like Lebanon, Syria, Egypt. But if you look at Turkey and Iran, they kept their language because I think they had such deep-rooted cultures that they managed to, even though they were invaded by the Arabs and became Islamic, they resisted full-on Arabization. Let me see what the top comment is. The top comment is by Richard, and it's a quote by Steven Weinberg. It says, "With or without religion, good people can behave well, and bad people can do evil. But for good people to do evil, that takes religion." That's one of my favorite quotes by And Cameron saying this goes against the founder of the Republic of Turkey. What? Oh, this goes against the yeah. So yeah, Ataturk. Cameron is saying this goes against what the founder of Turkey stands for. Yeah, I think if he was alive, he wouldn't believe how Islamic Turkey has become. The founder of Turkey was very much against Islam and almost anything religious. But yeah, but I
think that's been some of the criticism of it too. That a lot of this is going against their secular constitution and the secular nature of the country.
Right. Let me see if there's any comments I should be reading. Guys, if you want us to read...
I want to look at it, but mine's not coming up for some reason. So, okay. I don't know why.
Oh, here, Zara on Facebook is saying, as a Turkish girl, I heard some of my relatives defend this and say a lot of these girls are in love with their older boyfriends. If they get pregnant, they have the men to support them, but it's not about bringing love. It's about how to protect these victims that are being preyed on. So Zirin is saying she's a Turkish girl, and apparently some of her family is supporting this by saying, like, well, these people are in love and now they're pregnant and they need the support of the husband. Yeah, so it's very interesting how people don't hear themselves. They're supporting marrying children. Like, well, they're a child, but you know, they're in love. Like, oh my God, imagine hearing that in any other context.
That's the same excuses that were given in the United States when they bring up laws to forbid underage marriage. They say, yes, but what if they get pregnant? Or what if they're in love?
I mean, I could do that. I could do that with child soldiers. I could be I could recruit an army of child soldiers and be like, these are children. Like, yeah, but they love their country. Like, you know, like they want to defend their borders.
And they hate their enemy.
They hate the enemy. They hate. All right.
All right. You want to do the next? Okay.
Yeah. Well, wait. Okay. All right. Go on.
Oh. Okay. So, newly opened Sikh temple in California was vandalized with swastika graffiti. So, the day after a Sikh temple in California held its official grand opening, someone spray painted a swastika in the words "White Power" on the property. It was like a rock on the property. A neighbor found the vandalism. The CNN affiliate reported on a stone at the entrance of the Guru Manayeo Granth Gurdwara Sahib. Sorry if I mangled that. Temple in Orangeville, north of Sacramento. The neighbor was walking his dog when he saw this graffiti, and he put a tarp over it because he was a little bit outraged by it. And then later on, the graffiti was removed.
You know, whenever something like this happens, people come up with theories of who did this. Some people say, the most Occam's razor says, well, obviously this was probably some Nazis or neo-Nazis or Nazi sympathizers. But then some people say, like, probably they thought that Sikhs are Muslim. But I mean, if you're a neo-Nazi, you're technically against all, non-white people. So it doesn't matter if they're Muslim or not. But there's always this group of people that also suggest that this could be fake. It could be some people that want to bring more attention, want some attention, and whoever did this wasn't even a Nazi. They just want to, take some victimhood points. But let's say oh, poor us, look what's happening. And yeah, there's always a chance that that's true. But I don't think it's the most likely scenario. And every time it happens, like people bring up the example of some fake outrage, like some fake news, like some a news item that's we found out that it was fake, like somebody came and vandalized like a mosque or a synagogue, and they caught the guy, and the guy was actually a Muslim or a Jew himself. He was just trying to get more attention, but they took that as evidence that this is probably another fake story. But no, because for every fake one, we have 100, like a lot of real ones, real Nazi sympathizers that did vandalize a synagogue or a temple or a mosque. So yeah, there's a chance that you're right, that this is fake. But Occam's razor, I don't know, people know what Occam's razor is, right? Like the most likely simple explanation is that just have some dose of skepticism, but just be careful how you apply the skepticism. It's not 50-50, right? You know, being skeptical doesn't mean that everything is 50-50. Being skeptical is just like saying this is the most likely scenario that this was a white supremacist, but just having a little bit of like, well, I'm not 100% sure that this is what happened, right? Just have a little bit of skepticism. Not every, you know, applying skepticism means that you have to, not everything is 100%, but that doesn't mean that everything is 50-50. Does that make sense, Rivka?
Yeah, I think that Occam's razor is like, you know, the most likely scenario is oftentimes the truth. But again, you have to be skeptical. You know, you had said that people might have thought they were Muslims. Another thing that I thought was interesting is the sheriff in the town suggested that whoever did this may have thought this was actually a Jewish temple rather than a Sikh temple, and that perhaps because temple and temple they were, you know,
they don't call the Jewish places are like, they don't even call them temples, they call them synagogues.
Well, often they'll say Temple Beth Israel, even though it's the synagogue. So I just thought that was kind of funny that the sheriff had suggested that. One other thing that I thought was also interesting about this is, so this happened like late Sunday night, so they found, or early Monday morning. Well, then Monday evening, it didn't deter any of the members of this religious group, because they went and had their celebration and their worship Monday evening. And they had said that, you know, they had heard from all these leaders of different faith groups who were standing with them. And the other thing that I thought was interesting is when I looked up some more information about this, according to an ABC affiliate from California, and I didn't get a chance to delve further into this, but they said that the FBI reported that Sikh hate crimes or crimes against particularly Sikhs have gone up 200% since 2017, making them the third most targeted religious group. And again, I didn't go on the FBI website to check that out, but that was reported on an ABC affiliate. And then the last thing I wanted to say about this is, interestingly as well, one of the members of the Sikh temple had a message for these vandals. And he said, you know, come sit with us, come break bread with us. We want to talk to you. We want to explain to you who we are, show you who we are, because we love you and we love everybody. So I thought that was an interesting response.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, I'm hoping for a day where drawing a religious symbol would get the same shock reaction from people that a short symbol. Like, if you go out and draw a cross on somewhere, people are like, oh my God, this hate group, you know, a cross by this, like, hateful religion, like, they're still around. Like, imagine, like, Christianity has died and Islam has died, and you write Allahu Akbar somewhere on the wall. Even in Saudi Arabia, even like Islam has died. It's been like 100 years since Islam was last seen. Like, it's just some really weird, cringy people that hold on to it, or some of these crazy fundamentalists. And if you see Allahu Akbar somewhere, like, oh no, this hate group people are still, like, they're still in our town. Like, you know, they're coming back. Like, Imagine wouldn't that be great? Like any religious symbol would get this reaction that a swastika would get.
Well, time kills all gods.
Right.
So,
One day.
One day. All right. So
wait,
the next story
No, wait. I have to
you
read
have
the
comments.
top comment. Yeah. I'll let you know when I
Sorry.
have because when I bring the next news, it takes us a few seconds to load. I'll let you know when it's loaded. Okay. So the top comment is, haha, I just spent a good minute wondering what PSER stood for. Because whoever wrote the person that wrote the graffiti there looks like an S. Anyways, okay, whatever. Okay, let me just load the next news.
Okay, the next piece of news also has to do with Sikhs. That Sikhs will no longer be fined for not wearing bike helmets in Canberra.
This is such nonsense. This is such nonsense. Ricky, go ahead.
So let's tell everybody about it. Australians will no longer be fined for wearing religious headgear instead of bike helmets while bike riding in Canberra, under new rules aimed at making cycling more inclusive. The exemption, which came into effect quietly in December, was introduced after a Canberra man wrote to ACT, Australian, I'm not sure what that ACT stands for, Road Safety Minister Shane Rattenbury with a problem. His problem was, he said, that Sikhs struggle to wear standard bike helmets over their turbans, which are important religious symbols. The decision brings the ACT in line with Queensland, Victoria, Western Australia, and Southern Australia, which all have similar regulations in place.
Oh, you have a hard time wearing helmets over your turban? That's your problem. That's your problem. That's why is that the society's problem? Why do people have to bend over backwards to follow your religious rules? Like, that's your religious rules. That's not society's religious rules. Like, what the hell? This is so stupid.
Even more egregious, okay, in my opinion, even more egregious is that if you wear a turban or other religious headgear, so hijab or something like that, you are exempt from the bike helmet law. But if you do not wear religious headgear and you choose not to wear a helmet, you are fined. You have to pay a fine. And in some places, the fine is up to, in Victoria, it's $207. In Queensland, it's $126. In Tasmania, it's $119. And in New South Wales, which is the only territory that doesn't have this bike helmet exception, it's $344.
Right.
So some people are allowed not to wear a helmet and are exempt from paying the fine, while other people are forced to pay a fine. To me, that sounds highly discriminatory.
Yeah, this is religious
towards
privilege.
The people who have to pay. Yeah, exactly.
Religious privilege.
And special pleading.
See, this is the danger with Sikhism, okay? Because the Sikh people are popular among atheists. They're like, oh, I've met so many Sikh people. They're all so nice. They give food to all the poor people. They volunteer.
They love everybody.
The Sikh people show up at the fires in Australia. They volunteer. And no terrorist attacks. Nothing, right? Nothing. Like, oh, they are lovely. By the way, every time you say all people, these group of people are all lovely, you're definitely wrong, right? When you say these group of people are bad or good, when you make such overgeneralization like that, you're just wrong, okay? But the problem is that the Sikh PR machine has been so powerful, and people love them, and they even accept, like, oh, I don't have any problem with Sikhism because they're just so great, right? Why should we have a problem with them? Well, this is why. Because they're sneaking in, and they're just opening the door to all religious privilege. Because if you hear, like, Muslims, like, if people say, like, oh, a hijabi woman don't need to follow this law, people were like, no, what? No, Islam is like creeping Sharia, Islam this, Islam that. And they get like, they lose their minds, right? And rightfully so, rightfully so. I would lose my mind, this religious privilege. But then when they see Sikh people, like, we're like, why is there Sikh? Who's the problem? Well, now you have precedent for religious privilege. Now you have the law in the country acknowledging that religion apparently the laws apply to everybody, unless you have your magic sky daddy telling you that, well, my people are special, you know, back off, my people. And people are like, well, your magic guy said this, so I guess you don't have to follow the law. Because when you say that about the Sikhs, then it would be discrimination against Muslims and Christians and Jews if you don't give them the same religious privilege, right? So this is the problem.
Muslims get it. Muslims are allowed to wear it, although I don't see why you can't wear a bike helmet over a hijab. But you're right. You can keep taking this further and further and further. What about Hasidic Jews? Right. And they wear those big hats. Do they not have to wear bike helmets? What about people who are Pastafarians and wear colanders on their head? Right. They don't have to wear bike helmets? I mean, it just becomes ridiculous at this point. Either everybody wears the bike helmet or nobody wears the bike helmet.
Right.
And nobody wearing it affects public safety. And public safety trumps your magic sky friend. And if you really want to bike and you know you have to wear a helmet, invent a helmet that fits over your turban.
Right. See, this is why I always I get a lot of backlash from people when people say like, oh, look, this is a news item that Sikh people are donating, or some nice Buddhists or some nice Muslims are giving food to the poor. And I always like, don't give credit to the religion. Don't let this PR thing work. Give credit to the individuals. It's not some Muslim people. Okay, some Muslim people donated to charity or helping poor people or doing this or that. They are using this as a PR machine for the religion. And this has nothing to do with the religion. These are just good people, okay? Either they're just doing it because they're good people, or if they're doing it because of their religion, well, they're not good people. They're just following commands, right? But I think most of them are just individually, just good people by themselves, right? And just be like, oh, some great people. Don't let them use this as a way for a PR for the religion, because it has nothing to do with the religion, right? I'm hoping that these people that are helping, helping the fire victims in Australia or this and that, I'm hoping if you take their religion away from them, they're still going to do that, right? And if they're not, then then they're not good people. But I'm hoping they're actually that good. So if that's that kind of people that they're good with or without their religion, then don't give the credit to the religion. Don't be like, well, the Sikhism is good then, or don't give credit to Islam, or don't give credit to Christianity, because because I predicted this. This is the agenda. There's an agenda behind this, right? So if people go out and instead of helping, homeless people or fire victims as a religion, they want this. They are investing in something for them to withdraw later on, right? This is an investment in something. This is a PR for the religion, and it's going to come backfire. You have to call it out. You're like, oh, great that they're helping the homeless people, but remember, Sikhism is nonsense just like every other religion. Mention that. Don't let them take this, because this is how it's going to come and backfire, and now you're opening the door to all sorts of religious privilege, right? Call, if you're in Australia, call this out. Be like, why do I have to follow some laws, and these people have to follow different kind of laws? Why do my beliefs doesn't give me any privilege? Why is it that only magical beliefs give you privilege? Go on, sorry.
And that's what I found was interesting when I was trying to look for some other discussion about this. I didn't see anything, and again, I didn't go really, really deep. Perhaps maybe there is an Australian, newspapers or something, but I didn't see anybody saying, hey, wait a minute, why is there one law for me and another law for religious people?
Right.
In my opinion, it's one law for all.
Right, exactly. By the way, yeah, go on.
So I'm waiting to see, if anyone's going to test that. My sincerely held belief is that I don't need a helmet.
Yeah, no, it can't just be it can't just be sincerely held belief. It has to be magical sincerely held beliefs. It has to be something with like the Sky Daddy or something, or unless it doesn't count. This is the government acknowledging divine authority. That's what it does. This is another dangerous part of it. Basically the government says like beliefs don't give you privilege unless it comes from divine authority. So this is the government giving authority and legitimacy to divine authority, and that's extremely dangerous. GV is saying, Armin, I think it's a PR for their community, not for their religion. Sikhism is a non-proselytizing religion. Well, the community is a religious community. What do you mean, GV? Just because they don't proselytize, that doesn't mean, yeah, they don't want converts, but it's a PR for their community. It's a PR for the Sikh community, which is a religious community. It's a PR for their religion. Just because the agenda behind the PR could be different things. So some PR could be like, we want more converts, but some PR is like, no, we just want more favors. I would argue, even by the proselytizing religions, Christianity, Christian communities, and Islamic communities, most of their PRs doesn't really care about converts. Most of their PRs is about getting political favor, even among the Christians and Muslims, right? Muslims don't get most of their numbers from converts. Muslims get most of their numbers from birth rates. So they're not very there's some groups of them that are interested in converting people to Islam, but that's not most of their most of their PR is not invested in that. Most of their PR is on political maneuvers and stuff like that. Let me see what the top comment is. Kenny saying, I'm sure the turban and the grace of spirituality will protect their heads from sharp objects or impacts. That they won't require to be taken to a hospital or seen by a doctor for something that was 100% preventable. That they won't take the spot in the queue for a person that actually does have need. But just be careful, guys. First of all, if you say like, oh well, this is just Darwinism, it's just choice, let them take the risk, you're missing the point, right? First of all, it's an inhumane thing to say. Just because somebody is wrong about like the nature of the universe and believes in some nonsense religion, that doesn't mean we don't care about their health. We don't want them to be taken out of the gene pool. Like that's a social, Darwinism is the force of nature. That is not supposed to be social Darwinism. It's not supposed to be a way that we run societies or anything like that. Like that's a very cruel way of looking at running society. Don't ever say that about religious people. Oh, this is just Darwinism at play. No. Okay, people deserve to be protected, whether they're right or wrong about something. But another thing, even if you're that selfish or that inhumane, I'm not saying Kenny is saying that, by the way. I just got reminded of saying that. Even if you're inhumane enough not to think that it's okay for religious people to be taken out of the gene pool, it's such a horrible way of looking at things. But this is about opening the floodgates to a whole bunch of other things. This is about a government recognizing divine authority. This is about religious privilege. It's not just going to stop at this law. What you think, like when religious people have a precedent that shows that, hey, different laws for you, different laws for us, you think you set that precedent and just were like, okay, that's all we wanted. You think they're just going to be like, yeah, we just wanted to not have helmets when we have bikes. Great, we're happy now. No, this is going to be referred to for many other things. You have it on the book, you have it on paper now, that this is a possible thing. That because of my religion, I get to not follow certain rules. Do you think that's not going to be taken advantage of? Anyways, let me just load the next news. Okay, next news.
Okay, Donald Trump dismisses injuries of U.S. military troops. In a press conference, President Donald Trump was asked about the clear discrepancy between his initial claim that no Americans had been harmed in Iran's retaliatory strikes on a U.S. base in Iraq and reports of 11. Now, in this report, it says 11, but actually it's been updated to 34 military personnel diagnosed with concussions and an unnamed number of others being treated for other injuries in the wake of the attack. Trump said, quote, "No, I heard that they had headaches and a couple of other things. But I would say, and I can report, it's not very serious," Trump said dismissively. When pressed about the potential for traumatic brain injury among those concussed, Trump added, "They told me about it numerous days later. You'd have to ask the Department of Defense. I don't consider it a very serious condition relative to other injuries that I've seen. I've seen what Iran has done with their roadside bombs to our troops. I've seen people with no legs and no arms. I've seen people that were horribly, 3 horriblies, injured in that area, in that war. No, I don't consider those injuries to be bad."
So what do you think about this? I have a take on this that might surprise you, but go on.
Well, I think that, for one, I did look on some military news sites, and it's true that he wouldn't have known right away because the Department of Defense even isn't alerted right away when someone's injured, particularly in country. They would know if people were taken and flown out of the country. Then they'll get an update. So the fact that he had thought nothing had happened and then he finds out later that indeed something had happened, that discrepancy, isn't so strange because the Department of Defense had also said that no one had been injured. So, but I think the issue that a lot of people are taking from it is that he's sort of poo-pooing the idea of concussions and it's not really that bad.
Right. So
and traumatic brain injuries are really bad.
Right. Okay. But I'm gonna give you another angle to look at this that might actually seem like a defense of what he's saying, right? But hear me out, okay? Here's the thing, though. I'm not a pro-Trump guy. I always have to say that because a lot of people get like so triggered whenever I say something. I just don't, because I think like Trump and Obama are like both war criminals, and I could get into that why I think that later on other episodes and stuff. I've already, people that watch this show all the time know that I think that. But I also think like the people that so I think like he's a war criminal, but a lot of people are so against everything Trump says that everything that he says must be, I think, the worst thing that anybody could ever say. Like anything that he says, they just try to spin it like that. And I think that I always try to be a bit charitable to everybody. Like even if Thanos came and said something here, I'll try to like be charitable to what they're saying, right? Try to see what the most positive way of looking at it is. And if I wanted to be devil's advocate and look at this, I would say that what he might be trying to do is to avoid going to war with Iran, right? Because ever since that Iran attacked the U.S. bases, both Iran's government and United States have been looking at ways to de-escalate, right? Both of them were trying to show that, look, we reacted to them strongly, but also kind of like wink wink to the other side to say like, this wasn't that strong. Can we just like stop it now? Like, can we just not go to war? Both of them, right? So it's really a hard balance for both of them because they both have to go to their base and be like, look, like we showed them, we crushed them, and we won, and the other side lost. But also like, we didn't really crush you guys. This wasn't that big of a deal. Please let's stop the tit for tat or before we go to a full-on war, right? And Iran did that by attacking the U.S. bases in revenge for killing the Qasem Soleimani, but secretly leaking to the United States that we're attacking it so that they could pull out their troops so that they don't kill any Americans. So because that would be suicidal for Iran's government, because if they killed any Americans, missiles come. by the way, Iran does kill Americans, but they never do it directly, right? And their understanding with the United States is that if we kill Americans through our proxies, we're not going to go to war, okay? But these were missiles coming out of Iran towards a base in Iraq that was United States bases. This has never been this direct between the United States and Iran for the past 40 years or so, right? So this was like a hell of a lot of escalation. So if there were American soldiers killed, this would go into all-out war, and it would be suicidal for Iran. So they didn't want to do that. So that's why Iran leaked the information so that the United States could pull out the army, pull out their troops from the base. And when the base got attacked, they went and told their people, like, look, we bombed, like, look how humiliating it is. Like, we took revenge, right? And Trump has to come and say, like, look, we took out their number one, army leader, general, second person in the whole country. We took them out, so we were strong. We defeated them, and this wasn't that big of a deal because, look, no Americans were killed, no Americans were hurt, so we don't have to take any more revenge. Like, this was nothing compared to what we did to them. So this is why Trump is constantly trying to say it was nothing. It was nothing. Nothing happened because he doesn't want to escalate it into a war. I know a lot of people, Ali thinks Trump wants to escalate it into a war, but I predicted that Trump doesn't want to escalate this to a war, and this proves it because he constantly tries to emphasize on the fact that Iran's retaliation to us killing Qasem Soleimani was nothing, because if he wanted to go to war, he would exaggerate it as like, oh, our bases were attacked, we have to respond to this. And he constantly is trying to say this was nothing. And I think this emphasis on, I mean, he's an idiot, so he says things that are like, oh, like concussions are not a big deal, which is obviously like they are a big deal. But his main motivation is to be like, I think his main motivation is to avoid a war. And that's what he's trying to do. So if you think about it that way, in his own stupid way, you could say, well, if he not going to war with Iran will avoid a lot more American soldiers from being killed. So if you're caring about American soldiers, this could be a good thing that he's constantly trying to say that this is not that big of a deal, right? So that's just the most positive way I could put at it. Look at it. Sorry, what do you think?
I agree with you. I think that in a lot of ways, I think that one of the things that Donald Trump seems to be about is posturing.
Right.
He's constantly posturing, and oftentimes it works for him. That sort of, barking and not biting. And this may be the case in this. I also agree with your supposition that so many people hate Trump so much that even if he does something that they agree with, he did it being Trump, so therefore it's bad.
Right.
Because he's Trump, it's bad, not because the action is bad.
Right.
So that was part of the freak out. And I think, like, if you look on CNN, that where this original article came from, that was the focus on it. That, he doesn't care about people who have been hurt. Right. He claimed he had bone spurs, but, he didn't go to war. How dare he, et cetera, et cetera. To my mind, yeah, if you had a traumatic brain injury and someone poo-pooed it, you might feel upset. But I agree that it's posturing. And also, as I said, it's very often that someone might not know right away that there were these kind of injuries, particularly because they weren't so, severe as death.
Right.
And because it takes a lot longer for these kind of things to appear. So you might not have even known for a few days that someone had some kind of brain, head injury.
I mean, you could say that he could have said it. Okay, so if he's trying to avoid going to war, he could have said it better. He could have been like, yeah, this is serious. We're going to look after our soldiers, but we're so glad that nobody died. That would have been a major escalation. That would have been,
But that's Trump. He's
yeah,
not capable.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, okay, yeah, but he's Trump. Okay, so he's that's not the level of. I mean, I'm English is not even my first language, and I can speak better than him. But
honestly, I think Donald Trump comes down to 5 words: doesn't know how to act.
Right.
He doesn't know how to act when things are good. He doesn't know how to act when things are bad.
Yeah.
He's not capable of saying what most people would expect to be the right thing.
Or he just doesn't care.
Or he doesn't care.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, the benefit to that is a lot of things that we suspected about how the government works is now being openly said through him. So it's good to get some confirmation of those things, right? But that's just a silver lining to a bigger problem. Sarah is saying, it baffles me how people keep defending all this shit he spouts. By the way, I don't have any problem with swearing. YouTube has a problem with swearing. All those people that comment all the time, Armin, stop swearing, stop swearing. I haven't stopped swearing because of you guys. You know, your purity test and all, like, oh, swearing is so bad. I wish you. That's not the reason why I stopped swearing. You guys had zero influence on me. It's YouTube's algorithm that has forced me to stop swearing. Okay, it wasn't your pressure. I have no problem with swearing. Okay, Sarah continues. You can be a Republican and still accept that he's a bag of hot air most of the time. Yeah, but I agree with you that he is, Sarah. But I also think people on your side that have demonized this guy so much that serious criticism of Trump is being drowned in all the constant demonization. You know, like, I have legit criticism of this guy, right? I have legit criticism of Trump, and a lot of people have legit criticism, things that he does that are absolutely horrific, but all the legit stuff gets drowned in all the, like, oh, he said this way, or he used the wrong word, or he was rude, or he wasn't politically correct. Like, who cares about that stuff? He's passing on laws and policies that is going to hurt the United States and the world for decades to come, and you guys want to tone police a guy? You know, who cares about his tone? Who cares about his language? Look at the policies that he's passing. You guys are taking attention away from those important damages that he's doing and focusing on tone policing. You know, would you have been okay with it if he passed on those policies, but he talked better? Anyways. Let's go to...
I have to say something about what you're saying, though. I think that some of that way that he's acting and that rhetorical style is on purpose, and he is doing it to get a reaction and from people, so they aren't focusing on what he's doing. So and I see, like, here in the United States where I live, a lot of people enjoy his base, enjoy that kind of things that he says or how he says it. So I'm with you that I think that putting so much energy into that type of rhetorical style is giving him exactly what he wants.
Right.
Because he...
But even if it does... Even if he had
no support. He's a great snake oil salesman, and he knows how to play a crowd.
That's the only thing. That's the only thing he knows, how to sell nonsense. He's a good salesperson, but and he used that all the way to the White House. But I'm just saying, how many people know? Wait, can I say the? I don't know if I'm just gonna say it. I don't know if YouTube algorithm likes this or not. You know, how many people know that, oh, Trump said grabbed him by the pussy, right? Like, he's famous for that. Like, oh my God, he said grabbed him by the pussy, right? But how many people say, like, oh, Trump sold weapons to Saudi Arabia, and so did Obama, knowing that it's going to be used against civilians? No, how many, in Yemen, how many people say, like, Trump is responsible for facilitating the greatest humanitarian crisis of our lifetime? Compare that to grab them by the pussy. Okay? Which one do you think is more important? Okay? I think, humanitarian crisis seems to be a little bit big of a deal, but apparently grab them by the pussy triggers people more than bombing children. Anyways, that's our priorities. Okay. So let's go. Hold on, let me just load the next news. Okay, next news.
Geneva, New York City councilors stay seated during the Pledge of Allegiance. When the Geneva City Council in upstate New York gathered for the first meeting of the year, a newly elected Ward 5 councilor, Laura Salamandera, chose to remain seated during the Pledge of Allegiance. There was the usual grumbling on social media, especially from one right-wing Facebook page, which compared her to Colin Kaepernick, but Salamandera defended her decision to the Finger Lakes Times. She said, "I took an oath to uphold the Constitution, and my allegiance is with the people of Geneva and the world, not the flag. I have felt this way since I was in the 4th grade, and I have exercised my constitutional right to do so ever since."
So this is in New York City, United States, right?
Upstate New York. Upstate New York.
Because her name sounds like another city, so it was confusing. But go on.
Yeah. But what's the thing about this is this has happened so many times before, even in New York. For example, in 2018, a Peekskill, New York councilwoman refused to say the pledge. In 2016, a Brooklyn council member remained seated during the pledge. And then, you can go, there was an incident that happened in 14, 13. I mean, you can keep going and going and going. Just in New York City, New York State alone. Not to mention if you start looking throughout the entire country. So
right.
She's constitutionally, she has the right to do it. It's her choice. I think that people get butthurt. If you're a member of government, you can decide whether you're willing to put up with that butthurt or not, how it's going to affect your votes. But, I'm not particularly horribly offended by it, although I had hoped that she had said her allegiance was not just to Geneva and the world, but also to the United States. But that's just me. So, but I don't have an issue with it.
So, the Pledge of Allegiance has religious wording in it, right?
It does, but it didn't until 1954.
Right.
And that's the thing that a lot of people do not know. Under God was only put in 1954.
Right.
It was not in the original Pledge of Allegiance.
Red Scare and all, right? Because of the Red Scare.
Yes, because of godless communists.
Right.
And also the In God We Trust was not put on our money until the 54, I believe, as well. Our original motto, which I think is so much better, is E Pluribus Unum, which is out of many, one.
So I think
it's...
Right. So here's the thing. So, I might be considered an extremist based on my position on this. I go beyond supporting her, for her choice to not do the Pledge of Allegiance, but I actually go very extreme. I think not only it's good that she didn't do it, I think that it should have been illegal for everybody else to do it because of the religious language. This is a government institution, isn't it? City council, right? So
yes.
So yes. I think it should have been illegal for anybody to do the Pledge of Allegiance in any government setting because it has religious wording in it and separation of church and state and all that, right? So
you're not the only one. People have introduced bills to get rid of it. People have also tried to get rid of it on the money, the In God We Trust.
Right.
You're not the only one in the United States who feels that way. I don't know if they would say it's illegal, but that they don't think it should be
I'm not saying it's illegal. I think
the pledge or on the money.
Right. I mean, I'm not, even if it's not illegal, what I'm saying is that it should be legal. You cannot have the government recognizing or acknowledging or legitimizing divine authority. A government shouldn't have that right.
We're having a problem with that here. I mean, I remember just recently, the other day, I was listening to the impeachment hearings in the Senate, and they began the entire hearings with a prayer. Right. And not only did he pray, but not only did he call down God, but he also mentioned Jesus. So it wasn't just God, it was a specific religion as well. And I was outraged, and I don't remember that happening as much 20 years ago, 30 years ago. But yeah, I mean, people talk about Sharia creep. I mean, we have Christianity creep here.
Right. So let's see what the top comment is. The two top comments, one of them is by Morgan saying, be careful with the papers, okay? Morgan is saying, a pledge of allegiance is a ridiculous notion. It's hardly a sign of a free, you're free to do whatever, I think you meant to say free country. She continues, you're free to do whatever, but you have to stand and repeat these words to be condemned and vilified. I mean, technically, being vilified or condemned doesn't take your freedom away to not do something. Like, if you sit down and don't take the Pledge of Allegiance and people are grumpy about it, I don't think it's fair to say, well, where's my freedom? I mean, you're free not to do it, and they're free to get grumpy about it, right? I think the problem is something else. The problem is that you shouldn't have any religious wording in any government setting. I think that's where I get upset about it. Not that the fact, I don't think there's a freedom issue. I think anywhere in the United States you could not take the Pledge of Allegiance, and if there's any consequences other than people being grumpy to it, then there's you have legitimate grounds for legal action. Like if you lose your job, or if the teachers mistreat you because you didn't take a Pledge of Allegiance, you have, you're able to take actions against the school or your employers or whatever. So yeah, freedom is not an issue here. Brandy is saying, my 6-year-old has decided for herself not to participate in the daily Pledge of Allegiance because it has God in it. Your 6-year-old has decided that? Wait, so how are we sure if this is... Okay, be careful celebrating that, because it might be like parents telling you, guys, don't do it, okay, this is not good. And then when she doesn't do it, like, she decided this all on her own. You know what I mean? Look at my child. She's such an atheist. She's such a free thinker. I'm so proud of her. But we don't know that she was convinced by her parents. I'm not saying that, Brandy. I'm not accusing you of that. But I'm just saying, if that, that's great. But just be careful not to celebrate things like too much, because you never know. You never know what's happening. Parents always want to brag about their kids. I'm sure I would brag about my kid once I have one, if I have one. But so they're always trying to find excuses or something, like, here, hold this book, and then you take a picture and you're like, look, she reads all the time, we didn't even try, she just loves books, but you don't know that you actually, like, just hold this for this picture. Okay, all right, hold on, let me bring this. All right, next news.
Curriculum bill, if passed, would allow Missouri schools to teach LGBTQ history. A bill introduced in the Missouri legislature could see LGBTQ history and culture added to the state's curriculum. The proposed subject matter outlined in the bill, House Bill 2153, recommends covering LGBTQ social movements and contributions to society, while also making students aware of the history of anti-LGBTQ persecution that inform cultural markers like pride parades, visibility campaigns, and new legislation. The bill's sponsor, State Rep. Martha Stevens, said it could create a more positive school experience for a group that's at high risk for bullying, ostracism, and mental health problems, particularly in a state that has become increasingly red over time, which means more Republican. So I do want to add something to this. This bill doesn't mandate that it has to be taught. Each school each school district can decide to bring in this curriculum if they choose. So yeah, and that's what's a lot confusing for a lot of people who don't live in the United States, is that every single school district in every single state has their own school board that decides curriculum. So even 20-minute drive into a different school district could have completely different curriculum.
Okay, was this really necessary? Like, was there a ban on teaching? Like, so
no.
So wait.
I think she was. Go ahead.
So the bill is like, this is now allowed. So what was the scenario before this, that if a school decided like, hey, we're gonna have a class covering this specific topic in our school, was the scenario before like, you're not allowed? Like,
oftentimes the state sets a curriculum or like a floor for a curriculum, and then school districts are able to go above that floor.
Right.
And I think if I'm understanding it correctly, that this is sort of a floor, that it's the state is saying, yes, you can teach this. Here's what you can teach. Here's the parameters if you choose to accept it in your school district.
Just seems, I don't know, I don't understand this, because to me it seems like all social movements should be like, in history is part of it should be able to, every school is like, yeah, we're gonna teach the history of black rights activists or women rights activists or gay rights activists. Obviously that's part of any school should be able to cover any one of this, any animal rights activists.
I think you're correct in general, but I think that what she's, and I don't know if it's going to pass, and I don't even know if it was necessary, because if a school board doesn't adopt it, it doesn't matter. And if a school board wanted to adopt it and they had the votes, they probably could have without this. I think it's just trying to set a floor saying this is a state-approved curricula.
Right.
Because states do set a floor for the curricula that you have to have or that they approve to a degree, or how many credits you need, or
I just didn't know that, or if I'm not understanding this bill, I just didn't know that schools need permission to cover real history, world stuff that happened in history. Like, can we cover this event in history? Please give us a permission slip for that. Like, what? Like, what? Like, that's just bizarre that there needs to be a government bill allowing schools to cover real events in history. To me, the reason why I'm questioning this is because, to me, I'm wondering how much of this is a useful bill versus just signaling for votes. Do you know what I mean?
And you may be right on that. I don't know what the law is in Missouri. I only know what the law is where I live.
Right.
But it may be that a school district would choose to adopt this and people would say, no, you're not allowed to because it's not in the Missouri approved, the group of things that you're allowed to teach in Missouri.
Right.
And then if it's not there, then they would have standing to say you can't do it. I mean, I'm guessing. So I don't know.
We don't know. But just be careful with the reason why I'm trying to be skeptical about this, even though you might be right and I don't know, it's just important for us to not just say hooray if something seems to be on our side. You know what I mean? Like, be skeptical. If you hear a story that goes against the things that you want, we're usually more skeptical about those than news that we hear that seems to be going in our direction. We're just quick to celebrate those, right? So I'm just saying, just be careful. Maybe some bill has more of a political motive than an actual helpful one, or maybe not. Maybe this was necessary and it's helpful. But just be careful, spread your skepticism across things that you like and don't like evenly. And also just remember, being skeptical doesn't, again, I said this at the beginning of the show, being skeptical doesn't mean everything is 50-50, okay? Being skeptical doesn't mean you go from either something is 100% or 100 or 0, or it's just 50. Okay, being skeptical could be like something could be 2% chance, right? It seems like people are just all or nothing under skepticism. Either something is 100% or 50%. There's no in between. Anyways, let me see the top comment. The top comment is by Crystal, saying, it is a part of history. You can't just pick and choose what part of history to accept and reject. Take the good, take the bad, and you have the facts of life. Yeah, that's what I was saying. All right, should we close this one? Oh, fun. This is why we get demonetized. Okay, next news.
Okay, ISIS leader Jabba the Jihadi was captured and accused of enslaving women. The morbidly obese ISIS militant captured by Iraqi forces was one of the main architects of enslavement and sexual exploitation of Yazidi minority women. The 254 kilogram, and for Americans, that's 560 pounds, and for the British, it's 40 stone. Abu Abdul Bari, nicknamed Jabba the Jihadi by Iraqi forces after Jabba the Hutt, the slug-like gang leader in Star Wars, was known as the Mufti of Mosul. Abdul Bari was also one of the main leaders of ISIS, known for his incendiary religious decrees or fatwas. Iraqi security officials said Bari, also known as Shifa al-Nima, provided the religious justification for the enslavement of hundreds of Yazidi girls and women after ISIS forced thousands of the religious minority to flee their homes in August 2014. And I just wanted to say that this guy has put the fact in fatwa.
Okay. That's good.
He apparently had to be removed with a pickup truck because they couldn't get him into the police car.
Wow. Because
he was so large.
Wait, who captured him? The Americans or the Iraqis?
No, the Iraqi security forces.
They probably just captured him because he couldn't move.
Apparently, he's been in hiding for a while as well.
I don't think he's been in hiding. He just couldn't move. This is.
I think. He couldn't move, but I think he was also in hiding. Okay. I think it was. I think they were not mutually exclusive.
I think that's just his excuse. Like all the ISIS people are running away, and you're like, "Come, Jabba, let's go," and he was like, I'm hiding. I'm not gonna run.
You're right, exactly. Apparently,
you guys go. You guys all go. I'll just hold the fort here.
I'm hiding. Apparently, one of the Americans, or no, the British actually, who had been working with the Iraqis, said to the Iraqis, "Good luck hanging him."
Wait, is that how they kill in Iraq? Is that the execution is by hanging? Because
they public hang him because he was such a horrible guy. Oftentimes they will public hang people.
Oh yeah.
So he said to the security forces, "Well, good luck hanging him, guys." They couldn't even get him in the truck. I'm sorry to laugh. I don't mean to laugh.
No, it's fine. But that's actually a legit concern because you're right. Because I remember they hanged Saddam, so the execution method in Iraq must be hanging. So I don't think they have made. So they have to build a stronger one for this guy. I mean, what's the rule? What if they hang him and it breaks and it falls? Does that mean he's free now? He gets to go? Because that's how it works. That's how it works with stoning, right? So if they put you in the ground and they start stoning you and you manage to get out and run away, then the rule is that you're free. But nobody ever.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but the thing is, nobody ever gets to imagine being in dirt up all the way up to your neck. How the hell are you going to get?
Who's going to get out?
Nobody's going to get out. But if you do manage to get out, the rule is that you get to go free. So it should be the same rule applies for hanging. Like if they hang him and the whole thing just crashes, he'll be like, I guess I'm free now. No, I don't know. But
except for he won't be able to walk away.
You know, I see why this guy was into sex slavery. Nobody on the right mind would ever want to. Okay, never mind. Is that bad?
He was apparently one of the ones who was giving a lot of these justifications for the enslavement of and the sex slavery of the Yazidi women.
Oof.
He was also accused of blowing up.
Imagine being forced to sleep with this guy. Jesus.
Mosque of Prophet Jonah. You know, Jonah, who was lived inside the whale.
Right.
Apparently, there was supposedly a mosque for where Prophet Jonah. He had apparently blown that up. He had blown up some other holy sites. And he also issued some articles. I think one of them was called The Revival of Slavery Before the Hour on Judgment Day. And some issues that ISIS had brought up in their
Wait, so was
magazine.
was he just famous because he was this big, or was he like a big deal actually in ISIS?
He was apparently one of their big, guys in terms of issuing rulings, fatwas, issuing rulings on Islamic law, and one of the ones that actually apparently sort of was the architect of the idea that you could take these Yazidi women as war booty and then sell them as slaves, because he was saying, look, it's Islamically allowed and here's the reasons. And he issued all these proclamations and then also fatwas.
Yeah, I mean,
calling for these things.
Okay, I know this is controversial to a lot of woke people, but technically you don't need a fatwa for sex slavery because it's already in Islam. Fatwas are for new things. This guy coming out like, oh, I'm gonna allow sex slavery. No, that's not. You don't need to do that. Islam already allows that.
Right, and I think he just was sort of, codifying it for them. And he wrote an article in The Revival of Slavery Before the Hour, calling it Judgment Day. And he was talking about how you could capture them and how they're divided as spoils of war and how you would divide them and what the rules were and those sort of things.
All right, so the top comments, let me read this way. Stacy is saying his crime was mainly for blocking the door, preventing the woman from being able to walk out. That was his And the second top comment is Isaac is saying he looks like he skipped the Ramadan. So
apparently Majid Nawaz said, because they were calling him Jabba the Jihadi, right. Majid Nawaz said it was a good day for the Force when they captured him.
Right. But okay, just some understanding about Ramadan. Most people, I don't know if it's most, but a lot of people gain weight in Ramadan. Ramadan is not good for losing weight. Like people right before sunrise, you eat a lot of food, usually sugary food, and then you don't eat, you starve yourself until sunset, and then you start binge eating on sunset. It's the worst thing for your health. I mean, there is a way to do it right that is not bad for your health, but most people do, like, the rules of fasting in Ramadan doesn't have anything that makes it healthy. A lot of people, like, there's a lot of Islamic articles like how to avoid gaining weight during Ramadan, because a lot of people gain weight during Ramadan. So I mean, I wish, if Islam wanted to do fasting properly, they would be like, okay, this is how you start your fast, this is how you break your fast, and all that. So, but anyways, but it's not okay. But let me read this by Luca. He is saying, okay, I try not to be judgmental about anyone's appearance usually, but honestly, how did this guy become the leader of anything really? He can't even leave his bed. Well, I mean, to pass on religious fatwas, you don't need to leave your bed, right? His job was not to fight in battle. His job was to just give like Islamic ideas and be like, this is Islamic, that's not Islamic. You could do that from your bed. Yeah. So.
But on that note, Majid Nawaz from Quillam Foundation, they in this article they interviewed him, and he said that he thought that people seeing the size of this guy and his sloth and everything, he thought that it would be psychologically very. The word escapes me. It would be not good for them, that they would feel kind of depressed about it because they pride themselves on their fitness and their, maintaining themselves, and they're good warriors. And then here's this sloth kind of guy.
But they're not all warriors. They don't act like they're all warriors. They say like
he was talking about. I don't know. I'm just saying this was a comment that Majid had made with regard to seeing this guy's size, that it would be sort of saddening to them, and they would feel kind of psychologically disappointed that their big guy, their holy guy, was this schlub.
No, I don't think. I think if he gets more attention because he's this big, it's funny. Like they're like, yeah, we have this big guy. Gives us. I don't know. You could use that in your advantage.
I don't know. I'm just bringing up that's something he had said
in the YouTube live chat. Izzy is saying, how does this guy pray? Can hardly imagine him getting down on his knees. Well, I could tell you that not only if you're fat, but also if you're like handicapped, or if you're too old to move, or if you have, joint, muscle, pain or something, there are ways that you could just sit on your chair. Like you could just go like this. The podcaster can't see. Like you don't have to, if you have any physical problems that you can't do the proper Islamic prayer, there are ways for you to get away with it. Like you can sit on a chair, and when you're supposed to go down and, bow, you could just put your head down. Actually, not only there's ways to do this, they're so detailed about it. They have very detailed explanations of what you're supposed to do if you're handicapped, or if you're too old, or if you're too sick. Even if you're if you can't have, they have even tell you what you need to do Islamic washing before you pray, right? With water and your head and everything and your hands. They have rules for what to do if you can't have water touching your skin, right? Like Islam is it's such an all-encompassing, detailed religion about everything. They're like, okay, so if you can't touch water in your skin, you do this. If you don't have that, then you do this. If you don't have that either, this is what you do. They have plan A, plan B, plan C, all the way to Z. They have 1400 years to thinking about these things, right? You think a lot of people make memes about what do you do if you have to pray in the moon? Which way do you pray to? And that usually that's a joke, but what they don't know is they actually think about these things. The Islamic scholars come up with rules okay, so when we have Muslims in space, what do we do? How do we pray? Right? Which direction do we pray? They actually seriously come up with rules for that. Which way do we pray if we're right on the North Pole? Right? So if you're just a little bit away from the North Pole, well, you know which way you're supposed to pray to, with the place where the direction that Mecca is. But if you're right on the North Pole, then which direction? Now you have two to pick from two. So what do you do from there? Right? So. They think about these things. They have all the time and resources.
And the Jewish scholars the same.
Really?
They argue if you have lab-grown meat, can you certify it kosher? This was a huge discussion about the lab-grown meat.
Right.
Will it be kosher? Will it not be kosher because it's not actually slaughtered?
Right.
Huge discussion. And also, if Israel actually landed on the moon, they also were talking with it that didn't make it, but how would you pray if you're on the moon and you didn't know what the time was?
Right.
Because they do it 3. So same. Yeah.
Right. So this is the similarity between Islam and Judaism, because Christianity is more belief-based, still practice, but more based on belief. Judaism is more focused on practice, a little bit less on belief, more on practice. Islam is really obsessed with both belief and practice, coming up with so many details. So Judaism and Islam have that in common when it comes to coming up with so many details of what to do at this time, if this happens. Okay. All right, so let's go. Hold on. Next news.
The next news is the Tennessee State Senate started the 2020 legislative session by passing its first bill of the year, a controversial measure that protects religious adoption agencies if they choose to discriminate against same-sex couples. The bill, sponsored by Senator Paul Rose, a Republican of Covington, Tennessee, declares that no licensed adoption agency would be required to participate in a child placement if doing so would violate the agency's written religious or moral convictions or policies. It also prohibits the state from denying an agency's license or grant application for public funds because of the group's refusal to place a child with a family based on religious objections. The adoption agency would also be protected from lawsuits from such a refusal. The Senate passed the bill 20-6, with 5 Republicans declining to vote on the measure, including Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally. And on Friday, the governor of Tennessee actually signed the bill.
What? It went through?
Yep. Yeah, it passed both houses, and he signed it on Friday.
So now they can discriminate based on, and
it's, yeah.
Wow. And they have like nothing to back this up. Like they just like, why? Like what's the reasoning?
Well, a lot of the lieutenant governor actually did something that is very rare because he's the president of the Senate where the vote was when this article happened. He actually left his chair to argue on the floor against the bill. Oh. And he was saying that Tennessee already had implemented very strong religious freedom protection because this is what this is under the guise of religious freedom.
It's so amazing that most things that are about religious freedom, it's about denying people their freedom. Like, oh, let's deny these people their freedom and have the audacity to call it freedom, protecting freedom. Like, you don't get to do this because, why? Because freedom. What kind of religious freedom? My freedom to deny you. So religious freedom is usually what religious freedom
it's religious privilege. It is.
Yeah, but it's religious freedom usually means my freedom to deny your freedom. That's what it means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what's also interesting, though, is 5 Republicans argued against it, 4 or 5, on the floor, but only 1 cast a no vote. The other ones just cast a present vote. So they didn't vote yes, and they didn't vote no.
So even when they don't like it, they don't have
only voted present, which in my mind is even worse because they don't have the courage of their conviction.
Yeah, they don't have the spine. Like they're like, we're gonna lose votes. This is bad. This is nonsense. This is discrimination. But hey, these Christians are crazy, and I don't want to lose their support. So I don't want to go all the way and give them like wow. I mean, okay, so even if you...
It's a solution looking for a problem is what it really is, in my opinion.
But here's the thing. Here's what I don't understand. Even if you're such an idiot to think that, you know, gay couples can be proper parents, even if you think that, even if you're you know, a Christian or a Muslim or some other nutty religion, do you really think having 2 gay parents is worse than not being adopted at all? Like what? Okay, so let's just play their game. Let's say the best case scenario is a heterosexual, you know, father and mother parents. Okay, is having any parents not the at least the second best thing relative to having just being an orphan and not having any parents at all? Like, do you think it's just as bad? Like, is that what they're saying? Like,
well, people were arguing for that point. They're saying, you know, you're denying these children, a lot of children, a chance to have a family. And by the way, Armin, it's not just for LGBT. They can be rejected for several faith-based reasons. LGBT, interfaith marriage, single parents,
What?
previously divorced spouse.
Wait, so
if you have
what?
if you have a religious adoption agency that has a series of moralistic rules that they claim are part of their religion, they can reject you.
Okay.
Even if you're not LGBT. Let's say one's a Christian and one's a Jew.
Okay.
Or one parent's a Sikh, and they can reject you for that too.
Here's a question: would you, based on the rules here in the Tennessee, okay, say would they allow an adoption agency to say that, sorry, we don't accept Christian parents? Would they allow that? Is that allowed?
Well, according to this bill, they probably will be able to say that.
Okay, so maybe
now that this bill is law.
If that's the case, I might not be as against it as I thought I was, right?
But that could be a Muslim adoption agency would say, sorry, you're Christian, we won't give you kids.
Should that not?
Or a Jewish one won't give it to Christians.
Or black, we don't give people, or like.
Well,
sorry.
there you go. You
right.
can. It's a slippery slope.
Well, it's not a slippery slope. It's already there. No, you know what I mean? Because slippery slope is like a logical fallacy. But I'm just saying, it's already.
Okay, they've already gone down the slope.
Yeah, it's already.
They're at the bottom of the hill.
But are they? Is that what they're saying? Like, an adoption agency can. Like, are they actually openly saying that an adoption agency can say that, sorry, black people, black parents, no thank you? Like, would they allow that? And if they don't allow that, then what's the difference between that and saying, sorry, we don't accept gay parents, right? Because
the bill says they can refuse an adoption if doing so would violate, and this is a direct quote, the agency's written religious or moral convictions or policies.
Okay, so because they couldn't get away with religious privilege, because that would be unconstitutional. So that's what they had to add, or moral, okay? So if you're saying religious or moral, that makes it, non-religious, right? So they're trying to say, like, look, their agenda is religious privilege, but they're not going to be able to get away with that, so they're saying and moral, right? But if you add and moral, then you're opening the door to saying, well, we don't accept black parents, right? Because if it's just if it's just gay couple, so their target is the gay parents, right? But they can't do that. They can't just we're just targeting gay parents, because there's no scientific proof that gay parents are not good couples, and you can't say, well, this is our religion, because that would be unconstitutional. So they have to look like this is not religious privilege, this is all across the board. Even though their agenda is to target gay couples, they have to make it seem like it's fair for everybody. But now that it's to everybody, then the organization could be like, we don't like Jews, we don't like black people, we don't like midgets, we don't like this, we don't like that.
Exactly.
So, but
there's that.
Yeah.
But what's even worse what's bad enough, that's bad enough. But what's even worse to my mind, because if you're a religious organization and you don't want to have a family who's not of your religion, in the United States, it's not good, but people do it, but they can't get federal fund, they can't get public funds. But this bill allows them to not only discriminate, but receive public funds.
So actually,
because that's the issue in the United States, is if you take public funds, you're bound by the Constitution and all these laws, which have non-discrimination policies, Title VII, Title IX, Title X, all of these rules about what you can and cannot do because you've taken public money.
So here's the thing, though.
And that's what's happening now, is they're eroding that. They're letting these religious groups who already don't pay taxes, by the way, take our money to discriminate against people.
Right. So here's actually what makes this bill very clever, because actually, given the laws of not the state but the entire country, United States, you can't, no business can ever say that we don't accept black people, right? And this is the kind of protection that gay people do not have in United States, right? So this is why it's so important for discrimination against gay people to be recognized on a federal level rather than state by state, right? So they could, this is why it's so clever, because they're like, if I say, well, if you're saying morally any adoption agency could deny anyone they want based on their moral convictions, so that does that mean that they can say no to black people? Well, no, they can't, because that's against federal law. That you cannot discriminate against black people, because discrimination against a certain race is recognized as illegal by companies in the entire country. So, like, no, they can't, because another law already exists against that. But you can do it against gay people because there's no law in the entire country against that. So they're actually very clever, because they're like opening the door to companies being able to morally come up with moral rules to discriminate against gay people without being accused of opening the door to discriminating against people based on religion or based on their gender or based on their race. So that's why it's so important to change the Constitution in a way that it doesn't allow companies to discriminate against gay people. And the way that people are trying to do that is because discrimination against gender is already there. So some people are saying that maybe discrimination against gender could already cover discriminating against gay people, because if a man is think about it, you could say, like, if a man is allowed to marry a woman, not allowing, for example, a woman to marry a woman would be a discrimination based on gender. Because why is a man allowed to marry a woman and not a woman? Anyways, go on.
Well, we do have, same-sex marriage federally now.
No, but
so that has changed, but we don't have federal protections against discrimination.
Yes.
But
within
businesses and schools or any organization that receives federal funds or state funds, some states or some municipalities do have it. So therefore they would be required to adhere to those. The federal ones too. But the religious thing is this weird loophole in this country, because, and it's becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, because the religious say that their religion allows them to circumvent those protections or to ignore those rules or to ignore the law because of their deeply held religious beliefs. So they can refuse to treat patients if you're in the medical profession. You can refuse to, adoption. You can refuse to cover certain medical procedures, not even abortion, birth control.
Right. So
your company, all of these things based on the idea of religious freedom, because the government, First Amendment says the government shall make no that will not impede against religion either, though. So you make no, I'm sorry, I'm talking so much I forgot it, but you can't interrupt the free practice thereof. So they're saying their free practice is discrimination, and it says in the Constitution that the government can't stop us from doing that.
Yeah, the problem is that they're asking the freedom to stop other people's freedom. But again, sorry, you said something about, people can get married in the United States, gay couples, but what I should have phrased it better. I should be like, discrimination against gay people is still allowed. And the way, because it's not in the Constitution anywhere that you cannot discriminate against gay people, the way some people are trying to use the Constitution, the laws already, to get to stop discrimination against gay people is to say, if you discriminate against somebody because they're gay, you're technically discriminating against their gender because it's their gender that makes their relationship as a same-sex relationship. You know what I mean? So if you discriminate against somebody based on their sexual orientation, you're technically in an indirect way discriminating against them because of their gender, right? So if a man is in love with another man, it wouldn't have been a same-sex relationship unless they were a man, right? So that's how they're trying to, some people are trying to find a way to cover. I don't know if it works. I don't know if it's a good idea or a bad idea. I hope it works because cases like this shows that it's very much needed, right? Jonathan is saying, if they are adopted by LGBTQ parents, no pedophile clergy will be able to get their hands on the poor kids. Okay. I don't know what to say to that. All right. I don't think...
Okay.
All right. Next news.
You ready for the next one?
Right.
Parents will no longer have the right to withdraw their children from lessons about relationships, sexuality, and religion, the Welsh government has confirmed. Education Minister Kirsty Williams said the move would be tested next year before becoming statutory when the new curriculum is launched in 2022. Parents are currently able to request that their children do not take part in sex and religious education. Parents have greeted the announcement with mixed opinions.
Wait, why is this?
So
why is this two together? Sex and religious education?
It's religious, all like different world religions, I believe, and sexuality and relationships. Now, if you go to a religious school, I would imagine that there would be that particular religion's, dogma.
Oh, so this is okay. So let me.
But this is in public schools as well. They teach you about all the different religions of the world. They teach you about sexuality, and they teach you about relationships in terms of not just loving, spousal relationships, but also how to get along with other people in the world and how you treat people and how we can get everybody get along. And
okay, so the title that I'm seeing on BBC is Sex and Religious Education to be made compulsory. And I think the reason why they're being set together is because this is the stuff that these are both the topics that religious people are upset about. So they're not relevant to each other at all. But this is something that religious people are trying to not have their kids. Be careful with the sound of the paper. I'm hearing. I can't even hear my own.
Sorry.
So
sorry.
This is the kind of stuff that both religious parents are thinking that this is brainwashing our kids, and so this is the kind of religious education that we support, right? So a lot of atheists, when they hear religious education, a lot of atheists are like, "Oh no, that's bad. Take religion out of school." No, there's religious propaganda and there's religious education. Religious propaganda is like, be Muslim, this is how Islam is great, like in Islamic school, like, or Christianity, like, oh, Jesus is greatest, God did this, Moses came down and this is the law, and Jesus saved saved everybody from their sins, and we all get to go to heaven. That's religious indoctrination. That shouldn't be allowed. But the religious education, correct me if I'm wrong, but the religious education that we're talking about here, that's the one that we support, which is an objective analysis of all religions, I mean, at least all the major ones, and their history of them, which is one way to actually produce atheists. I mean, that's how I became an atheist, right? So
I think you're right, but there's also some criticism of this from, for example, the humanists of the UK, which say that they were concerned about the scrapping of the right to withdraw from religious education in faith schools, because such schools will still be able to teach the subject from a faith-based perspective, which is kind of silly in my mind, because of course they will, because it's a faith school.
No, but that shouldn't be
which
allowed.
They're going to do anyway.
Are they public schools?
No, they were talking about faith schools, like a Catholic school.
All right,
or
let's hold on. Wait. Let's get this straight. So sex and religious education is becoming compulsory in what schools? All schools or just
all schools? All schools.
What?
The entire country.
Why? That can't. You cannot. So you're forcing private schools. So private schools must have religious education. That's insane. That seems insane.
Well, that country, which highlights the difference of what we were talking about with the United States, is they have a curricula for the entire country, whereas in the United States, there is no federal curricula. Every different school district has their own curricula.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I understand it to be, because it says that your parents will no longer have the right to withdraw their children from lessons about relationships, sexuality, and religion, the Welsh government has confirmed.
So they also say they're also talking about not just the objective religious education, but also the faith-based one. Like if I have my kid in a school and I'm an atheist and they're teaching them Christian propaganda in school, I'm like, yeah, I don't want that my kid to be exposed to nonsense. Wait, hold on. Let me finish. Let me finish my question. So if I say that I don't want my kid to be exposed to religious propaganda, and I take my kid out of the school, is that not allowed in Wales now? So go on.
I think that is not what's happening. I think what they're saying is they're going to teach about religion in all public schools. Faith schools already teach about religion, the faith of the school, which they would do anyways. So as an atheist, you wouldn't send your kid to a faith school. You would send your kid to either a private, non-religious school or a public school. And that's why I think the Humanist UK point is sort of moot, because they're saying they're concerned about parents not being able to withdraw their children from the religious education in faith schools, because such schools will still be able to teach the subject from a faith-based perspective. But of course they will, because it's a faith school. It doesn't make sense to me.
No, it makes sense to me because, like, let's say, for example, like, the law is like you cannot take your kids out because they have religious education, right? But what if let's say that the mother is Catholic and the father is an atheist, and the mother is putting the kid in a Catholic school, and the father is like, I don't want my kid there because this is religious indoctrination. So even though I knew already that this is a faith-based school, but I have a problem with that based on this, the fact that my kid is being brainwashed, does this law now not let me make that argument? Do you know what I mean?
This law would not let you now remove your child.
That's horrible.
From that religious class.
That's bad. Okay.
But so that's the thing. And so they're saying that they're going to test this out for a year before they actually implement it, to try and, I'm guessing, work out these kind of issues.
Yeah, I hope they come up with the understanding that the only religious education that they want to support is an objective one. By the way, I don't think that even if this religious education from an objective perspective and not a faith perspective, it's a good thing. I don't think the government should be able to force schools to have that. You know what I mean? I don't think any government should be able to, like, you cannot decide whether your child gets religious education or not. Why? I mean, at least the sex one I get. So the sex one I get because the sex education is an issue of public safety. Okay, so you say, like, we're gonna make it mandatory for all kids to learn sex education because we don't want diseases to spread. This is not just about your kids. This is about the society, right? But even the religious education, even the one that I like, the objective one, I don't think it should be mandatory. It's not as urgent or as important. Like, I think it's helpful if people go and research religion, and I think it causes more atheists that way. but I don't think it's as necessary or as urgent as kids being learn about sex education. I think that's an issue that the government has the legitimacy and the right to get involved because they're protecting the public from diseases and whatnot, right? But this one I don't understand. What's, you know, I support it, but I don't think.
Well, that's what's at issue.
Yeah.
Exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, you get the hell out. You don't get to, like, what else are you going to decide? Like, this government going to, like, cooking classes. You cannot take your kids out of school because you don't like cooking classes. Ballet for all children. Government makes it mandatory. Like, why? Right? Even if it's good. What the hell? You get off our backs. This is private schools? You're forcing us? I don't know. Somebody that lives in Wales or has a better understanding of Wales education system and thinks.
And I tried to look.
Wait,
up
let me finish my statements, okay? But somebody that understands this more, if we got anything wrong, please comment in the comment section and let us know. Give us more details. Sorry, go on, Rivka. You tried to look?
I was going to say that to your point, when you were asking if anybody from Wales knows anything more about this, this is what I was trying to add, is that I tried to look up some more about it because this article didn't really give very much information.
Right.
And I think that that's why you and I are like, well, what's
happening? Yeah.
Right. And I wasn't able to find anything. And maybe if I had had more time to research it, I would have been able to. But I wasn't really able to find anything really objectively explaining exactly what we're talking about here.
Oh, it's fine because these are usually a starter to an open conversation. If people want to add more detail, they can do it in the comment section, right? And usually it's good. Like whenever we're not 100% sure about the news item, instead of just saying, well, this is what's happening, we're always like, we're very upfront about not being sure about what the hell's going on. George's top comment is saying, I loved religious education. I had the opportunity to point out how ridiculous everything sounds in front of the whole class. Also, I come from a Greek Orthodox country, which means we got taught from an actual priest. And in case you were wondering, yes, I failed that class, and yes, I got expelled once, but it was totally worth it. Yeah, I mean, that's all fun, George. Like, I know, like, some people lose their religion because of actually religious, faith-based education, but that's not always the case. Like, the brainwashing usually works. I mean, you're just, like, not like most kids. But what actually works better in producing atheists is not the faith-based ones. It's the objective analysis of world religions. That's usually, like, it's really hard for a kid to go to school, and their first experience of religion is like, some people believe in Jesus, some people believe in Allah, some people believe in Ganesh, some people are like, well, this is the history, this religion started here and became growth through conquest, so I went there and it was introduced to Indonesia this year and blah blah blah. And you're like, it's really hard to study all that and come like, yeah, I think the true religion is this, and I think God is real, and these people at this part of history at this time were the right ones. Like, you don't get that. Most people are like, yeah, it seems like people are just arguing over their own made up stories. Yeah, that's the most common conclusion that you get, that if that's what you're exposed to, that's why I support religious, objective, secular religious education without any of the propaganda. But even though I support that, I don't think it should be forced on anybody. Anyways, I might support, I'm not made up my mind on this, but I might support forced sex education. I think I'm leaning towards that being forced by the government. Sex education, I think, should be forced because it's not just about your kids. It's about everyone else as well. All right, so last news.
Okay, the last thing is kind of a sad thing. A North Korean mother faces jail time because she rescued her kids from a house fire while leaving Kim's portrait to burn.
Wow. So
this happened in December 30th. This happened, quite a while ago, but we're learning about it now. So The woman has been placed under investigation by the country's Minister of State Security after a fire broke out in a home shared by two families in Ansong County, North Hamgyong Province, close to the Chinese border. Both sets of parents were out of the home at the time the fire started, but raced back to save their families after seeing the smoke. In the process, one set of the portraits were destroyed. North Korea demands that every home display paintings of its past leaders, Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, and sends inspectors to ensure that they do such. If this mother is found guilty, she faces a lengthy prison sentence with hard labor. So just to add, not only do they demand that they have to display the portraits, they have to be hung prominently in a room. They have to be hung high up.
Wow.
So high up that no person can be standing higher than the portraits.
Wow.
And also, if there's a layer of dust on the portraits, they're punishable by a fine, and the fine is determined by the thickness of the dust.
Wow. Insane. So, let's just make that clear. There was a fire, and the mom rushed into the house, and what the government expects you to do is go for the painting instead of your own child?
Apparently, the family that also shares the residence with her, with this woman who's been incarcerated, that family, she saved her children, but was the portraits from her house were saved by a farm worker who was recently released from prison he was in prison for a violent offense. He was recently released, and he was able to rush in and save the pictures from her house, and now he is being hailed as a hero. So apparently in North Korea, saving the pictures makes you a hero, even if you die doing it, or even if you save the pictures over saving a family member, then yes, then you become sort of a martyr, so to speak. And then they write songs about you, or they'll talk about what a great hero you were.
So here's the thing. I always don't like, I don't like it when atheists call anything they don't like just another religion. But this one comes pretty close, because a lot of things are dogmas but not religion. But atheists, because of their hate for religion, they just call them religion. For example, communism, right? A lot of atheists hate communism, and they're like, communism is just another religion. I'm like, well, it's not. It's dogma, but it's not a religion. It doesn't have any supernatural beliefs. Or some people are like, oh, nationalism is just another religion. Like, well, no, it doesn't have any supernatural beliefs. You know, you call it dogmatic. You can call a lot of things dogmatic, but not all all religions are dogma, but not all dogma are religion. But North Korean ideology, it gets, I think it could be argued that this is getting to a religion, because it's not just about the fact that it's dogmatic. Their beliefs is I don't know, I think it's supernatural, because I saw so many documentaries on North Korea, and they have this belief in the spiritual presence of their dead leaders, right? I saw little girls, singing and thanking their great leader for making the sun rise. I saw people every time that before they eat, they thank the great leader for making the food possible. So it seems like a prayer before eating. I mean, if you have supernatural elements in there and you're this dogmatic, the two elements that I look for to make it dogma, more than just a dogma, but also a religion, is supernatural elements and rituals. And they have it both, right? So not all supernatural belief is not all supernatural belief is a religion. It has to be dogmatic, and it has to have rituals as well. And they have it all. They're a dogma, they have supernatural beliefs, and they have rituals around their supernatural beliefs. Technically, that's a religion. I don't know if people agree with me on that or not, but what do you think?
Well, these people that have died saving portraits of Kim or Kim Jong-il, one of the Kims, are held up as martyrs, are venerated in a way that's similar to religion. For example, there's a story of this one woman, Han Hyung-gong. She was 14. She drowned while trying to save her family's Kim portraits after a flood.
What?
And
she drowned trying to save the portrait. Wow.
Right. And so she was posthumously given the Youth Honor Award. They named a school in her memory, and they have, posters of her.
Right.
Also, there was another one where they talk about a house that was on fire and a child was found to have been burnt to death, holding the portrait. Now, we don't know if that's actually happened or
Probably
whether
not.
that's sort of just like a story that they tell as part of like what you're saying, the dogma. And apparently this mother, and the portraits being more important than the kids, I think you're going to see this, and what I'm about to tell you is that because she's under investigation and because she's being held, she can't tend to her children who are in hospital.
Wow.
And she can't, for some reason, she's not able to get the medicine they need. I don't know why she would get it rather than the people in the hospital. And they also say that the neighbors want to help, but they're afraid.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid that it will come back on them if she's charged with a political crime.
So think about how much paranoia there is. So you could get in trouble not for helping the lady that did not save the portrait, but you can't even help their children. Like the government might actually see you as a traitor because you helped the children of the woman that didn't run into a burned building to save the portrait of the great leader. Like, you know how in Christianity, when the sins of the father is the sins of the son? In North Korea is like that to 3 generations, right? So if you betray, if you're considered a traitor, they punish you to 3 generations because you have the bad seed or whatever, right? So if they catch me saying something against the great leader or something, I go to jail for forced labor for the rest of my life, and so does my son, even if he didn't say anything like that. And also his children, even if they're not yet born. Once they're born, they should also go to jail until they die because of their sins of their grandfather. So you get punished for 3 generations to purify your bad seed. That's how they punish. That's how crazy it is. And also, when they execute people, they bring the family to watch the execution, and they watch them to make sure none of them is crying or showing any show of remorse. That's why they make sure the family is watching it. So the entire family, they bring him there to watch the execution, and they're looking for any sign of remorse or any crying or any sign of sadness. And if any of them shows any sign of sadness, they become a traitor as well. This is like, a lot of you have to be careful, because a lot of atheists always think like Islamic countries are the worst violators of human rights. Like Saudi Arabia comes to mind as the worst, but it's not Saudi Arabia. The worst country when it comes to human rights violations is North Korea. Okay, so I'm against Islam, and I think Islam is responsible for a lot of pain and misery all around the world, and Islam needs to die as the disease that it is. But don't let your anti-Islam bias deny the fact that North Korea is the worst violator of human rights anywhere in the world. Saudi Arabia is a second, but it's not even a close second. It's not even a close second. It's a distant second. I know Saudi Arabia is hard for people to believe that it's a distant second, because Saudi Arabia is so bad at human rights, but North Korea does it is so bad that it becomes a distant first. You know, that's how bad North Korea is. That Saudi Arabia doesn't even get close to North Korea at how bad it is. But anyways, anyway, did you want to add? Oh, let me actually read the top comment.
What are the comments?
The top comment, it says, I feel sorry for these people living in North Korea. I've seen some documentary about their country and saw how brainwashed is everyone and how much they worship their supreme leader like a god. Yeah, I've seen a lot of those documentaries as well.
That was the comment I was going to make when you were saying about how bad it is in North Korea versus Saudi Arabia or some other countries where there's violations of human rights. I think that because it's so closed in North Korea and it's so inclusive of everything inside your home, how much, whether you dust the portrait or not, whether you smile when you see the leader, whether it's so ingrained in everything, it's almost as if you don't even have freedom inside your brain.
Right.
Where in a lot of Muslim countries or other countries, you at least have one space that's free inside your head.
Right.
And it appears that North Korea has figured out a way to take even that away from people.
Right.
Because of the fear.
Yeah, it's horrible. JV is saying that hospitals in North Korea don't have medicine stocks. That people have to bring their own medicinal herbs from the wild.
Okay, so that's why.
Wow. Okay, that's insane. So the hospitals.
So that's why
hospitals don't have medicine. Is that okay? Okay, that's why she had to bring her own.
She couldn't get the medicine. Yeah.
All right. Tagia Watch is saying, have you suffered consequences for burning the Quran? Any examples? Well, no, I burned the Quran when I was in Canada. So I lived in a free country when I did it. So nothing other than people being triggered online. That's the only consequences that I got. Anyway, so that was the last news that we covered. Beej is saying, so Chrissy's saying, I love you guys. Beej is here as well. Thank you, Chrissy and Beej, for being mods in our live chat. You guys are awesome. By the way, if Beej and Chrissy, if you ever guys want to come and host an episode with us, please let me know. We would love to have you. Thank you everybody in the live chat. If you're going to correct us, please do that in the comment section on anything that we got wrong. Please share our content. Again, the algorithm is against us. We need the support of our community for this channel to grow. So please share our content and subscribe to our newsletter. It's in the link is in the description. Yeah, love you guys. Thank you for being here and see you guys again next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.